Hello! How's it going? I'm very pleased to be here with you. What do you do in a normal day? Is your routine the same on weekdays? And how does it change at the weekend? Today we are talking about that, routines. To me, it is almost the same every day. I just wake up, have breakfast, have a shower, then go to work, then I have lunch. You know, the typical things. But at the weekend it is slightly different because I don't always go to work, and of course I love spending time with my family. If this isn't your first contact with English language, I'm sure you have heard about this topic before. It is called simple present. The simple present turns out to be one of the most useful tenses in English, and perhaps the best part is that it is actually one of the easiest as well. Among other things, it is because we can use it to describe habits and routines, things that are generally true, as well as permanent situations. All you need to use it is the subject, a base form verb, and the complement. A base verb is a non-conjugated verb. In other words, it hasn't got any ending. But I have to be completely honest with you. You can only use this pattern if you are working with the subjects I, you, we, and they, or an equivalent noun. Let's set some example sentences. I have lunch late in the morning. They speak Chinese and Russian. We live in the countryside. Now, even though we are using the present simple in all the example sentences, they don't have the same purpose. The first is an example of a routine. The second is something that is always true. The third can be a permanent situation. But don't ruminate it much. You make the language. In other words, everything depends on what you want to communicate. As I told you when I first set a pattern to this tense, it isn't obligatory that you use a subject pronoun. Let's work with examples 2 and 3. The original phrase says, they speak Chinese and Russian. But if I want to specify who exactly does this action, I could also say, my friends speak Chinese and Russian. We are switching the word they to my friends. We can easily make this change because they are equivalent words, since they are plural. In the second phrase, we live in the countryside, we could also say my sister and I live in the countryside. Once again, we are switching subjects. They are equivalent, since my sister and I are plural nouns that include me, as well as the subject pronoun we. As I was telling you before, we have to make a small change if we want to work with the subjects he, she, it. And I'm telling you that it is a small change because it really is. In fact, you have to follow the same pattern, with a single difference that you have to add the letter S or the letters ES to the verb. How can we know if it is necessary to add just S or ES? It isn't difficult either. You will add the letter S to most of the verbs, with the exception of those that finish with a consonant with a similar sound to the letter S. These consonants are the letter C, the letter S, the letter X, the letter Z, the letters SH, CH, the letter O, and the letter Y, but only if before it there is a consonant sound. If before the letter Y there is a vowel sound, you will only add a letter S. For example, enjoys or plays. Something important about the verbs we modify with ES is the pronunciation. You have to pronounce it complete, with no shame. For example, watches, wishes, finishes, those, goes, dances, flies. Let's say some sample sentences. She washes her car on Sunday morning. He goes jogging at night. It barks a lot. Now let's try and switch the subject pronouns to other nouns. In the first sentence, Emma washes her car on Sunday morning. It is equivalent because both are girls. Number 2, Henry goes jogging. It is equivalent because both are men. And the last one, your dog barks a lot. They are equivalent because it is a pet. As you can see, it isn't complicated at all, but you'd better practice it. It is easier if you want to communicate negative information. You only need to use a subject plus either don't or doesn't, a verb in simple form, and the complement. We use don't with the subjects I, you, we, and they. We use doesn't with the subjects he, she, or it. For example, I don't like exercising. My parents don't have lunch with me. Laura doesn't work for a big company. He doesn't play with his new toy. It is simple, isn't it? Just pay special attention to the third and fourth statements. You will notice that although we are referring to he and she, we aren't modifying the verb. This is because actually the modification is in the auxiliary doesn't. Can't you see it? Don't, doesn't. We already added es to the negative auxiliary doesn't. That's why it is unnecessary to modify the verb in a negative phrase. And finally, if you want to ask about someone's routine, what we have to do basically is to start with do or does, plus a subject, a base verb, and if you want to, a complement. For example, do you have a shower every day? Or where does she live? Once again, you can see that in the second example, where we are using a third person, we didn't change the verb. It is because of the same reason. The auxiliary does has already been modified. Do, thus. We already added es to it. In conclusion, you will only modify the verb if you are speaking in affirmative form, neither negative nor interrogative. That's all I have for now, guys. I hope everything's going good in your life. Please let me know in the comments whether you find this information useful or not. I'd appreciate if you subscribe and give me a like if you liked this video. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye!